Okay, we are going to pick up in Siman Reish Nun Gimel. We're going to continue in Sif Aleph. We started yesterday Sif Aleph. It's going to continue for a few more days. So let's jump right into it. Yesterday we learned in Agdam already Machlekes Chanani and Rabbanon regarding Shehiyah and Chazara. And we said yesterday the first sheet was the Shitas Rif and the Rambam, that they hold like Rabbanon, that even Shehiyah is Aser v'kol shekei Chazar. Today we're going to continue to pick up other scenarios where it would be mutter, like we said yesterday, it's Aser if it's special called Tzarkoi and it's mitztamik viralai. We explained and say the cholent's going to get dry, right? You're upset. There's no chashash shemi yachate that you're going to flip the gechalim. So we're going to give another case. Oishu chai. If you put on raw meat, shaloin is bashal klal. The kivan shuchai, since it's raw, masiach daite mimena alamachar. Since it takes many hours to cook, we're not chayshesh that you're going to stir the coals. Why? Because it's going to be ready in the morning either way. No one eats at 3:30 in the morning. The only problem is either the Friday night meal or the Shabbos day meal. So as long as by Shabbos day it's going to be ready, and Friday night it's not going to be ready, even if you higher the flame, then it would be mutter. Okay, ubechol halayla, since the whole point is the whole night it could go, yochel isbashal b'leichitoi, since it could cook the entire night. Aval im nisbashal ksas, v'loy nisbashal kartzarkoi, let's say, to a certain degree, it is cooked a feeling nisbashal called tzarkoi, even if it's cooked completely. V'umitztamik v'yafaloi, however, it's good, he's happy with it, chashin Hashem yichata, we're nervous, he might stir these coals, v'asal ashoy salel. Therefore, you're not allowed to even do shehiyah, which we said leave it there throughout the Shabbos, and you put it on before Shabbos. In kain garaf, unless you are garaf. What's garaf mean? Dahainu shahaytzim kachalim. You remove all the coals. Oy katam. What's katam mean? Dahainu shekisa kachalim be'efer lamayit chumam. By you putting on efer on top, we're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah that you can megal das. You're not looking for the coals, and now that even covering it, it makes it even get cooler. What happens if you put a raw piece of meat? Because let's say, for example, today you have cholent, delicious cholent. You didn't put the meat in yet, and you even have time out. You give it out, and it's delicious before Shabbos. However, once you put in a thick piece of raw meat, you expect it to cook throughout the entire Friday night. You're going to leave it till Shabbos morning. Even if it's not grufa, like we said, it means remove the coils of ketuma. Which means covering it. Mutter lismayach lag deir b'samachutz. You're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah, even though it's still has heat, you're allowed to put a pot next to this stove. So let's see the Mishnah Berurah. There's a lot of Mishnah Berurahs to do, a lot of dirshus. I'm not sure if we're going to have time to go through every single dirshu. We're going to try to pull out the most. And again, at least you'll remember when you have such questions, where to look, especially when you're going to have shalos about the oven, removing the buttons to turn and everything, or covering it. We're going to see many shitas what's going on, and if we could do a blech today. So let's jump right into the Mishnah Berurah. Oishu chai v'dafka basa chai she'efshel isbashal etzorich sudas laila. This is dafka raw meat that it can't cook for the Friday night meal. Aval yaruk u'shar dvam shem kalei bishul loy mahani mashu chai. To put in raw vegetables only takes a few minutes, so it doesn't help that it's chai. Whenever we say meat, whenever we mention chaticha chaya, it meant to say meat, which takes a very long time. Now, note 15 brings. What about putting it on, especially today's oven? You could set the oven to turn on in the middle of Friday, middle of the night. There, they bring down from the Chazon Ish that it's aser, and it's not like continuing. It's like putting on before Shabbos. There, we can understand they masiach died till the day because everything's masudar. Meshenkin over here, we're worried that you might. Since you need to make sure it gets hot, even though there's a timer for it, we're worried you might be shama yichata. Now, what happens if you have a massive pot? Some of the things are cooked, some of them are not. Some of them are, you could already pick out the food. From this agrel it says, it's considered basachai, and we're not nervous that you're going to end up stoking the coals, even though you theoretically, if you would stoke it, you'd be able to get, let's say the corn, they put pieces, people put, Julie, you're the caterer, right? People would put in, let's say corn, right? Those little pieces of corn, and
really?
Yeah, it's still with the meat. I've had or onions with the meat, different types of vegetables that if you would hurry it up, you would still be able to enjoy it. Okay.
I believe that they're even talking about that something can go on in the middle of the night.
So it's a Chazon Ish, which is these days. Chazon Ish wasn't that long ago.
How long 50, 60, 70 years?
It's a good question. I don't know when he wrote this tshuva. Okay. Yeah, they had timers then. Those ones in the oven, those Shabbos timers even.
Shabbos, but not in the oven.
Sure, all you have to do is put the oven, the plug on you. The onion was working with the plug even. Let's say electric one. Working with gas. I'm not sure. Okay. But today we have it, that's for sure. Today's oven, 2024, we for sure have it. Okay. Let's continue. We're telling Shalom is bashal kla. It wasn't cooked at all. Pirish, shari, when it's not. When it's totally raw meat, it's mutalit nesamach l'shkia mamish. Even right before Shabbos. Shkia. So the only time it's really mutter has to be raw, which can end up being right before Shabbos. But you can't put it on, let's say 1 o'clock in the afternoon. By the time Shabbos, it's somewhat edible. It's yeah.
Let me tell you, this happened approximately 45 years ago. I was traveling and went to Rio de Janeiro. And in Rio, my friend and I, in those days, I don't know if you remember, they used to have a barbecue chicken that was frozen. You put it, and what we did is you put it in hot water, a tub.
The Goyim do that. That's what they do for East, one of their holidays.
Really?
Yeah, they put in a frozen chicken in very hot water. So it could be very dangerous.
We had it in the tub for Shabbos. We put it in there.
So then, you might have issues with Shabbos, talk.
Okay,
let's continue. We have a lot to do today. Yes.
I thought that you're supposed to. It has to be the meat. If you're putting in a piece of raw meat before Shabbos, has to be at least cooked. Right. It has to be.
Right. So we learned this. So this is going. This is what's yesterday's shir really was going on. The Rif and the Rambam. We're going the Fi Shitas Rif and the Rambam.
Because you just said that if you put it in raw right before,
then it's mutter. Because if you put it in before, and by the time Shabbos comes, it's somewhat cooked, and we're chayshish shemi yechata. The problem is shemi yechata. You might stoke it. What happens if it's so raw you can't eat it Friday night? But if you put it at 1 o'clock and it's a summer Shabbos, if you turn on a higher flame, by the time they serve the meal, dinner over here, it will be cooked. That's the problem. However, if you put raw meat, even over here in Fountain View, by the time dinner shows up, there's no chance it's cooked, even if they put it on a higher flame.
In other words, so it doesn't have to be
even
Michael ben Dersoy? It's called Michael ben Dersoy. Ben Dersoy, we said yesterday, was a Ganav. So he was always on the run. He was a fugitive, so he was always eating very quickly. So it's a third, a half. Right, it's a shiloh if it's a third or half cooked. But let's continue. We really have to move. It's a shiloh. Some say third, some say half. I think it's even brought down.
But you're saying you're allowed to put in
as long as it's really, really raw. Because then there's no chance.
Right before Shabbos.
Right, dafka right before Shabbos.
So it's going to cook on Shabbos.
Correct, but the point is it's going to cook on Shabbos, but you have nothing to worry about because by time Shabbos morning it's definitely cooked.
In other words.
Yes, that's okay because you're not chayshish. You're going to eat it at 3:30 in the morning.
Right, but you're allowed to cook, even though it cooks.
That's the whole. There's no issue of cooking on Shabbos like we learned, as long as it's going on before Shabbos. Right, that was the really Reish Nun Beis, the Akdama of Reish Nun Gimel. Now we're ready in Reish Nun Gimel. Okay, Klau. So we're telling us that it wasn't cooked at all. Even if it got warm. We're not worried that you might stoke the coals. If the meat just thawed a little, got a little warm, it's not an issue. It has to really, really, really cook. And the Chaznish brings a raya about warming, because you have no way of knowing. Every time before Shabbos, even a minute before Shkia, by the time Shabbos kicks in, it's already warm. Because no one puts it in, mamish, 2 seconds before Shabbos up to Chaznish. You put it 5 minutes before. So the point is, as warm as not the issue, it has to really start cooking. And it takes a good few minutes to start cooking. What happens if it gets already hot like Yad Saledas? Yad Saledas, we're going to learn, some say it's 110, 104. We're going to go through all the sheets. This means you put your finger, it's too hot. You quickly jump back. Then it's ready, started cooking. And therefore, you have to be very careful. You shouldn't get the shear of Yad Saledas. Okay. Like I was telling you, if you do it at 1 o'clock, if you hire the flame, you might have an issue with stomach yafa, or to make it yummy and delicious. Okay, what is this going on? That's what grifa means. To remove the coals, chutz l'kira, out of the stove. And what was that? I feel as long as you remove the coals. And today we're solving it by a blech. I put on this metal piece over my stove. The machmir we're going to see is going to get a better blech that covers the knobs, which we're going to talk about in a few moments. Okay, shekisa gechalim, hainu kol gechalim. You have to cover all the entire. You have to cover the entire coals. You don't have to mamish cover that there's no fire. For kolshu, the point is the cover completely malal pneim sagi. Even though vafilu huvara achakach, especially with coals, we all know it could flame up. It's still not a problem. Sure, it's a gemara because you ready magal dasti, you're not worried about it. The Gemara says that feel like gechalim shel reisim. Reisim is a certain type of eitzim that are very, very strong. Sheinim marim the covers. Takes many, very long time to dry up, to wither, lose its heat. Gam kain shari. Vatamachol said the whole point why it's mutter. Kiven the gila daita delay by gechalim. Since I'm showing that I don't want coal, sagi. You're not going to come and stoke the flames. The Gemara continues. The gechalim sha'amamu, which means hainu shehuchshak ksas marisa. It got already dark, lost its flame, as they say, right? We have it when you make a mangal, you make a barbecue, it has it. Harein kektuma is the halacha of a ketuma. Vatam the kim shalai chashish l'abaisan shalai amud. You should have prevented it. The way you prevent it from losing the coal from losing its flame is by fanning it, and it revives itself. Dr. Rashbi is showing that you're not interested in stoking the flames, the coals. And then we said, you're allowed, even if it's not groovy, you're allowed to put a pot next to it. It's all talking about linear shihiyah before Shabbos to put a pot near the stove. Which we're going to see. Which we didn't touch.
Shihiyah is one of the psulim by shchita, by shihiyah.
So yesterday we explained, I don't know if you heard in yesterday's shir, but shihiyah okay, so a basic shot of Shia Chazor we brought down in the Kedama is Shia means to leave it before Shabbos. We're going to see some say even on Shabbos we're going to get it to wait. Shia is the lashon waiting. You're waiting throughout the Shabbos. Chazor is what we do when people take challah, they want to return it. Okay, but lahachzer b'Shabbos aser afilu b'smicha. Then it's aser even near the stove. Rak l'svar shnia, which we're going to get into. We're going to see Mr. Hashem late next week. The Chazar is also besmicha mutar l'kula alma. Va'afilu besmicha lekatchila b'Shabbos dar yesh mekilin hechashek der dain cham if it's still hot. We will get there at its time. Now, mutar l'smach la hakadeir. Hainu gam ken afilu on a special shlish, even if it's not like Michael ben Desoit. The kivin dein of l'samich lam b'chutz, like me putting it near it, not on it. Now the mutter sham lahashis I feel like special kaddish the canal we're not so machmir because it's mamish not on it. Okay, and then we said mutter lismach log deira besama chutzala hainu filam yatzeles makamu. Even today, if you have a stove and very hot, you put your finger next to it, it's gonna be yatzeles. You're gonna jump from the heat. It's still mutter. And then we said, mutter lashavim huska bekasha begavva. It's a type if you put it on straw and stuff like that. Mutter lishas alel. I feel in a light group of a light katuma. What the Messiah? You're allowed to do a shia to did to put it in the oven, the key in the group of damya, since it has the lach of garb, which is removed by daimunas. Just like on top it's mutter, who within inside. And then it says, I feel in a group of light katuma. There's no problem talking. Why shmiyachakala? The second. You close ashalev gala gam gacheles. Once the flame goes lower, huadin the coals. What about today's day and age? The ovens, gas ovens today, they're being from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and from Elyashiv, that we also have a gzeir of Yechatim. More than today, it's much easier. All you have to do, you spin the knob, right? It's much easier to make it. If anything, today we have to be much more careful. And it wasn't like a case earlier where we sewing, regarding all those coals and the stoves and everything. Okay.
Today you have stoves that have Shabbos mode.
Right. So today, most stoves today you make it on a separate. You have a program. You press it. You hold on to it. It turns on to Shabbos. Correct. Okay. Let's try to see a few notes that we didn't touch. What about, we said there's a problem about food. We're going to stop in a few minutes. I just want to hop around a little because there's extensive notes on this, but I want to try to get as much as possible. What about gzeres chita dvarim that don't have food? For example, can you make a little Medura, a little fire in the winter to warm ourselves up, and maybe we should be chayshish shem yichates, especially more people come to the room, and it gets cold again. So we're going to see in the Shulchan Aruch that if the shalevis means the flame goes on its own before Shabbos, we're not chayshish shem yichate, and it's mutter, because it was dafka food that we had a gzeira. However, because you needed to stoke in order to get a higher flame, but Medura is not like that. The flame is on its own. There's nothing really to stoke. The only other really issue is to really add firewood, I guess, at a time where eventually it would die out, and that we're not chayshish. Okay, we said also another thing with food, when you're very hungry, you look at the thing and it's getting late, especially, imagine a place like this. They forgot there's 100 or whatever, how many people in the dining room are waiting to eat. And the mashgiach and the caterer is getting a lot of pressure that everyone's complaining that the food is not ready yet. It's much harder in Nisayan and much harder. We have what to worry about much more. Mashain Kain, a fire is not as much. Okay. You're going to tell me regarding a shower. We do see later. We're going to see in Shin Chavav we are worried. We're going to see there it's also a problem with Gzeira because we're going to learn the Rechitza. It's like halachas of Shtiyah. And we're going to see regarding a radiator. We'll see this all later. Okay. Now we said in Sivkat Yud Gimel that you have grifa means to remove it outside the oven. I'm going to say that's the Shitas Harambam. However, the Balmar holds it's good enough to just push it to the side. However, we're going to see the Das Yeshus Yaakov regarding Chazara. It's good enough like the Balmar. We're not machmir like the Rambam. Now, regarding when we said covering the coals with afer, it's good enough to sprinkle it. It doesn't have to be totally complete. They bring them from Eliashiv. Okay, another halacha they bring down. On 25. Let's go through note 25. That what is the halacha today with the blech? Is it good enough to just cover the stove, today's stove, or even with the knobs? So they bring down, today what you should do is, that they bring them from Moshe right away, it's not good enough to cover the knobs, you also have to cover the stove, because by covering the stove, you're showing that you're not interested in making it higher or lower, and they bring that from Yasha, the same halachas. And they bring that from Alatzim regarding removing the knobs. However, the Shevet HaLevi says the way to higher and lower the stove is with knobs, therefore that's where you should do it. Let's just do one more, it's getting very late. However, they bring them from Maisha, Sheyesh Lahachmer, they should try to cover both. Therefore, when you're going to buy, even though it's Chashash Rachik, he says, you should try to cover both. Mais Rashas Chaki can be Mekel, and Ein Limcha is Benahagim Lachasis Eish Lachod, like a lot of people do. However, Rabbi Yasha brings down Bechlal that you don't need to cover it. And the Arletzin and Rabbi Yasha, they both say the same thing. Okay, Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we're going to continue in Sif Aleph. Actually, next week, Sunday, we're going to continue in Sif Aleph, Daf Chaf Aleph in the Mishna Berurah.